The first place in the Holy Scriptures where man is mentioned, or the word man is mentioned, is Genesis 1:26. And I'll actually read it here. Excuse me. It says, "And God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth." So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. So in discussing what a man is, we find that God created a creature that was created in the image of God. So whatever image God has, this man was created in God's image, in the same likeness as God. Okay, and then when you study this issue, how God created man in His own image, we find that God actually has. Can also have a physical form. God is a spirit, yes, but he can also have a physical form. Remember that on Mount Sinai, Moses was shown saw God in person, although he didn't see his face. But if we read more carefully, we find that actually it was actually Jesus who he saw, because in the King James Version, when it shows the word Lord in all caps, it's actually talking about Jesus. But remember that Jesus is the express image of God the Father, because no one has seen God. Okay, sometimes what they see is a bright light, but Christ is often appears in a physical body, and that same body is the one that man was made in the likeness of. So when it says man was made in the image of God, man has the same body or form that God has, but man is also flesh and spirit, and God also has a spirit, and God is also referred as being a soul, and man is also referred to as being a soul. Okay, Genesis 2:23, and Adam said, "This is now bone of my bones," referring to when Eve was created out of a rib that was taken out of Adam, "and flesh of my flesh, she shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man." And the next verse says, "Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother." And if you read between the lines here, it's saying that a man shall leave his father and his mother, and goes on to say, "and shall cleave unto his wife." Why? Because man is supposed to be attracted and fall in love with the woman, and then it goes on to say, "and there shall be one flesh." Yeah, but that's quite important. Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, because of the issue of love. Okay, that these two, when a man and a woman fall in love, they're supposed to leave their father and mother. Now, what tends to happen in many different cultures, including here in Zimbabwe, there are many alleged men who, when they get married, they stay with their parents. Even recently, I was talking to a young man who told me that he knows of this young man who is the last born in his family. Now, this last born decided to get married, but he decided to stay with his parents, and the reason was that his siblings had moved out, and he was the last one to leave home. And he said, "I'm not going to leave home, I'm going to stay with my parents," because sometimes there's a tendency by last-borns, especially when they're male, to want to stay with their parents to help their parents as they get older. But what then happened is that the parents started interfering in this man's marriage, to the extent that the wife actually said, "We need to move away and start our own home," but this young man refused, and he ended up breaking up with his wife. So that actually does tend to happen quite a lot in African families, where it can either be the firstborn who sees himself as having a duty to look after his parents, especially as they get older, and then decides to get married but stay with the parents, and then the parents start telling that firstborn or lastborn, whoever it is, they start telling them what to do, because they're actually staying on the parents' homestead, and then they build their own home on the parents' homestead or on the parents' piece of land, and then they end up being told what to do, and then obviously that causes a clash between the parents and the daughter-in-law, and then that causes issues in the marriage, and then the man and the woman then who are staying with the parents and the parents-in-law end up breaking up. That does actually happen quite a lot. I know of at least 2 men so far who have left their wives because they not necessarily, sometimes not necessarily because they stayed with the parents, but because they allowed their parents to interfere in their marriage. And now recently I've heard of this last born who stayed with his parents when he got married, and then he ended up breaking up with his wife. So the scriptures make it very clear that when a man decides to get married, he's supposed to leave his father and his mother. So that's what a man is. A man is not only made in the image of God, but is someone who leaves his father and mother. And the reason why a man, when he gets married, has to leave his father and mother is also to show that he's no longer dependent on the parents, and that his first priority is to look after his own family. Matthew 19 verse 5 says, and said, for this cause. Now I'm actually going to read a few texts which kind of repeat what Genesis 2:24 says about a man leaving his father and mother. So this is Matthew 19 verse 5, and it says, for this cause shall a man leave father and mother and shall cleave to his wife. Now the word cleave can be translated united, okay? United to his wife, and they twain is two, and they two shall become one flesh. Wherefore they are no more twain, they are no more two, but one flesh. What therefore God hath joined together, let no man put asunder. No one is supposed to split up married couples. That's actually been tried in my case with my wife, that my parents tried to split me up with my wife, but obviously I refuse because I know what it means to be a man, okay? And I'm trying to get more understanding of what it means to be a man. I'm trying to be more and more Christ-like as time goes on, because Christ is our ultimate role model, and he's the one we're supposed to look up to. So next text, Mark 10 verse 7 also says, for this cause shall a man leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife. Okay. And then we have Ephesians 5:31, for this cause shall a man leave his father and mother and shall be joined unto his wife, and they two shall be one flesh. Okay, so even the Apostle Paul repeats what's been said in Genesis 2:24, Matthew 19:5, and Mark 10 verse 7. And then we have 1 Timothy 5 verse 8. But if any provide not for his own, and especially for those of his own house, he hath denied the faith and is worse than an infidel. So here, here it's especially talking about men. But let's say if someone is a widow, then it will also apply to them. You're supposed to provide for your own family. A man is someone who provides for his own family, especially for those of his own house. You see the way it says especially for those of his own house. Now there can be an extension there where you can also help out your parents and your siblings and other relatives, but a man is supposed to provide for those of his own house. And if he doesn't do that, he hath denied the faith and is worse than an infidel. That's what 1 Timothy 5 verse 8 says. 2 Thessalonians 3 verse 10, for even when we were with you, this we commanded you, that if any would not work, neither should he eat. A man should not be someone who is idle and lazy, who expects handouts or donations from others, but doesn't want to work. Now, in my personal experience, what happened with me is that when I started working, my dad basically, even though he was in his early 40s, didn't want to work anymore. He wanted me to provide for my parents and for my siblings, and obviously that didn't happen because I have my own goals and my own aspirations, and that I want to achieve. So that actually caused the clash. That even up to now, with me being 51 and my dad being in his early 70s, when I was talking to him, and obviously I cut ties with my parents, but when I was talking to my dad, he was expecting me to kind of be the provider Now it clearly says here a man is supposed to provide for his own family, isn't it? So I've got my own family. I'm supposed to provide. My duty is to provide for my wife and my children. My dad's duty is to provide for his own wife and is for his own children if they need help. So and if someone does not want to work, they should not eat. Okay, Ephesians 5:22. Wives, submit yourselves unto your own husbands as unto the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church, and he is the savior of the body. Now, I know that it's been said, in fact, this has been said for a long time now, for some years, that divorce rates are about 50%, that out of the men and women who get married, about 50% end up getting divorced. And I know that that rate is higher in Western countries compared to African countries, let's say, or Asian countries. So why I'm sharing that is because what I have noticed personally, and this does not mean I might be biased in this opinion that I'm about to express, but what I've noticed from various experiences, watching documentaries and videos and reading books and all this stuff, and my own personal experiences, that there are maybe 2 or 3 main reasons why that cause divorce. You see here where it talks about how wives should submit themselves unto their own husbands. What I found is that, and even in listening to women when they are talking on podcasts and stuff, and when they're being interviewed, is that women, in general, and this does not apply to all women, but a lot of women do not want to submit themselves to their own husbands. I think in their heads they think that if they submit themselves, they are being enslaved. They're allowing themselves to be enslaved by their husbands, which is not the case. There's a difference between being submissive to your own husband and being enslaved. Basically, my understanding of a woman or a wife submitting herself to a husband is to allow the husband or the man to be the leader, okay, and to follow the leading of the man. That's what it means. And so I wanted to share that. So that's one reason that causes divorce, is that most women nowadays are not submissive. Second reason is adultery or unfaithfulness, both from the men and from the women. Now, in the past, women didn't used to commit adultery as much as they do nowadays, but adultery is very common amongst women nowadays. I mean, there are confessions of this on online nowadays. It's like people sometimes are not ashamed to put their dirty laundry out in public, and I'm talking specifically about especially YouTube and other social media channels, where social media outlets where both men and women talk about their affairs and their extramarital affairs. So this is actually spoken about quite openly on social media. So that's the second reason that causes divorce. The third one, before I mention the third reason, which I think is quite common, what I would say is there are many issues that cause divorce, but perhaps the third reason could be is like how it says here that a man should leave his father and mother. Sometimes, even if a man leaves his father and his mother and starts, this man and his wife buy their own home away from both sets of parents, it's like there's an unwillingness to let go of parents, to continue putting parents first instead of putting their own spouse first. You're supposed to put your own spouse first when you get married. But in some cultures especially, I even had a friend who I used to work with in the police who got married, and think his wife was from Eastern Europe, and eventually they got divorced because the wife didn't. The mother-in-law to my friend was always interfering, wanted to know exactly where they were. She would constantly be calling them on the phone, asking where they were and what they were doing, and she was constantly interfering. And my friend's wife was So the word I wanted to, maybe the word I should use is attachment. The wife had an attachment to her mother, and was more attached to her mother than she was to her husband, and eventually they ended up getting divorced. So that can also cause a split between couples. Is that the problem is that there are some men and women who continue to put their parents first when they get married instead of putting their own spouses first and their own family first. And a lot of this is to do with indoctrination. Is that there are some parents who bring up their children to believe some of these things, but they are not biblical. Okay, it clearly says here, a man shall leave his father and his mother and shall cleave to his wife, and it means united to his wife. Okay, now going on here in Ephesians 5 verse 24, therefore as the church is subject unto Christ, so let the wives be to their own husbands in everything. But that's not happening in most marriages. And then next verse, husbands are, it says, for husbands, for those who think that wives are just expected to submit, but the husbands are not expected to do anything in return. It does say, husbands, love your wives even as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for it. So husbands should be willing to give their lives for their wives. Let's just say a wife's life is in danger. The husband should be willing to put themselves in danger to save the wife. So these are just some of the verses that tell us what a man is. A man is someone who leaves his father and mother and is united to his wife. A man is someone who provides for his own family. A man is someone who works, is not lazy. A man is someone who does not try to pass on his duty to someone else to look after his own family. When you get married and you have children, that's your duty to look after your own wife and your own children. You don't pass on that responsibility to someone else, or even like your firstborn. Like in my case, I'm the firstborn. It was expected that when I started working, I should be the one to take the lead, even though I've got my own life and I wanted to get married and chase my own dreams and aspirations. So there's no such thing. I think as soon as someone allows themselves to be treated in such a way where they become the head of the family and start looking after their parents and their siblings, but also have to look after their own wife and children, you are basically a slave. Okay, someone else is living your life for you, and you're not really living your life for yourself. You're not even deciding exactly what you want for yourself. So yeah, a lot of these things cause conflict, but we should not run away from conflict. We should take it on head on, and in some cases even be willing to walk away and cut ties in situations where these kind of things happen. We should not compromise. We should be so obedient to God that we are not willing to compromise on what the scriptures say. If the scriptures say a man shall leave his father and mother, a man should leave his father and mother. It does not mean that they are completely forsaking their father and mother. But what it's saying is you are no longer dependent on your parents. You don't allow them to interfere in your own home, and you put your wife or your spouse first, and your own children first before your parents. And the most important thing, which I never personally had, especially with my dad, maybe not so much with my mom, but with my dad, is that I've never had a relationship with my dad. So what I wanted to say is that the most important thing is having a relationship first with your parents or with whoever, with your relatives or siblings. Money should not be the most important thing. Money should not be in the forefront of everything. But there's a tendency, noticed that there's a tendency, especially in African families, that it's like when you are a child, and even as an adult child, you are treated as an investment for your parents, so that you give them money and you buy them material things. The most important thing is having a relationship. Without a relationship, it's not worth having a relationship with parents or relatives who just expect donations and handouts. For me personally, I'm not interested in such so-called relationships. I actually want to have a real relationship where I can actually have a conversation with someone without them expecting anything material or monetary from me. So that's those are my thoughts on what a man is. If you want to disagree, that's fine. You are not forced to believe what I believe, but at the end of the day, I believe that the only holy book that has truth is the Bible. Okay. And that's what I base myself on. At the end of the day, all of us need some kind of guide, and for me, my guide is the Bible. That's what I stick to. I try as much as I can to not contradict it knowingly or to compromise what the Bible says knowingly, because I know that the more obedient I am to God, the richer my relationship with God will be, and eventually ultimately I want to be saved, and I can only be saved if I'm obedient to what God says. Yeah, you can make of what I've said what you will. You can make up your own mind. You can disagree or you can agree. It doesn't really matter to me. These videos are for those who are receptive to truth, who are not being rebellious against God, who actually just believe and follow what God says, instead of trying to constantly argue with God and think that they know better, because we've had over 6,000 years of experience here on this earth where it's been shown that God has been right every single time. So why argue with what God says? What he says is best, and I'll follow what he says. Okay, so thanks for watching the video, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.